Hello and welcome back, beautiful soul, to Permission to Follow Your Inner GPS video podcast series. This is your host, Angel Lady Terry Marie. I am an intuitive empath coach, Crystal Goddess, and my clients hire me to help them get their BS stories out of the way, to connect to angels and spirit, and to just follow their purpose even more closely. Today's amazing guest is Madeline Eyer, and she is an amazing person who is all about, she's a certified holistic health coach, integrative nutrition health coach and developer, energy clearing practitioner, and her passion is helping individuals heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Please welcome our beautiful guest today. Hello and welcome, beautiful lady.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We were chitter-chattering before, that's why we're giggling now. We met many years ago, and Madeline is a raw food person, meaning this is what she does, this is what she teaches, and she coaches and lives it. Please, beautiful, tell us a bit about how you got started in this and what your journey's been like.
Sure. Well, the journey started in childhood. I had eczema on my hands, a terrible rash. It was all over my hands, it went up my arms, and my parents took me to a variety of different doctors, and none of them had a good answer for me. They would try different creams and salves, and nothing seemed to make a difference. It became clear that that system of medicine for this purpose for me wasn't cutting it. So I began to look outside of the box, as I got older, like into my teens, and found a chiropractor and learned some things about nutrition and improved it somewhat. Actually, the most relief I got was when I turned 18, instead of going to my prom, I went down to the Caribbean, and being in the sun, in the salt water, the vitamin D, I was probably very deficient. And the salt water and the sunlight, and then getting away from the stress of the family life. I'm the oldest of 7 children, so it was a little bit of a stressful environment at times, as you might imagine. And so, I began to just look out of the box, having these different experiences, and that was the start of it. So very grateful for that, because otherwise I might have been stuck in a system that really wasn't appropriate for me and where my soul wanted to go.
And you were able to, whether you knew it, all of it or not, but you had a connection with your soul very early on that things just did not resonate for you like maybe the rest of your family. Was that some of the cause of the word that's coming, that's rift, or the stress for the family life?
Well, I would say, you get that many people into a small space, things can get a little crazy. And again, being the oldest, I had a fair amount of responsibility. Helping care for the younger ones. I have a younger brother who has some brain damage. He's had seizures. I believe what I know now was a vaccine reaction, vaccine damage. And actually, in retrospect, every one of us were affected in some way. In fact, interestingly, one of the reasons I believe that I was so adamant about stepping outside the box, my mother demonstrated that in certain ways, where I had such a reaction, which I think that's where the eczema came from the vaccine, because the pediatrician told my mother never to give me another one, that I could get smallpox from it. And so, he made it sound very grave. And so I remember every year she would have to go up to the school and fill out a form for me, so I wouldn't give me any more of these vaccines which we now know are loaded with mercury and, heavy metals and other toxins. So I'm not anti-vaccine, I am pro no toxin, right? Don't give me formaldehyde, please.
When you went down to the Caribbean and was in the sun and the surf and the sand, was that another kind of an aha moment as to some of the effects of the results that you were getting without even knowing that that's what you were doing? Was that a catalyst for you, Madeline?
I think in some way it wasn't conscious at the time, but I remember feeling markedly different when I got back and seeing, noticeably the difference in my hands and yeah, that, yeah. And I didn't think vitamin D or any of that. Came to learn all of that stuff later, but just being able to lie in the sun, in the sand, in the water, it was just a beautiful experience. And
so how did you get from that point to the raw food and knowing that that's where you needed to go for your path?
yeah, so that evolved over time, the raw food. Before that came a chiropractor who told me he was going to teach me how to eat. And so he basically gave me the short list of foods that would be very healing, and rather than call it an elimination diet, which is really what it was, without saying it and without telling me I would have a healing reaction, which I did. I thought, I'm eating so well. Why do I feel this way? I felt horrible. I was married to a guy at the time where he was eating really not such good things, and he was a smoker, and I thought, why isn't he sick? Why am I sick? We caught up with him, sadly, but for me, it just that was a whole part of the journey. And then later on, the raw food came when I had a lot of, like in my early 50s, I had a lot of just lethargy. My adrenal glands felt like they were fried, and went to a naturopath, and we did some testing and decided that I had heavy metal toxicity, lead and cadmium that was off the chart, literally. And so we decided we would do what's called chelation therapy. And there are different ways to do that. This way was, they used something called EDTA. It was an injectable, it was an IV situation where then that would attract the heavy metals, and then you have to excrete them through your urine. And, that does put some stress, obviously, on your kidneys to have to detox that stuff. So they do it in rounds of 8, and I did 8 sessions. And then the last one, they test again. And now they were seeing aluminum, and they were seeing mercury. Of course, I had mercury fillings, in addition to the lead and cadmium, which had gone down, but it was still high. And so the naturopath, seemed concerned that, my organs would have to process all these metals and wanted to slow it down. So she said, we'll go to a oral chelation. And I just did not like how that made me feel. And so I just prayed for an answer. It's like, show me what I need to do. I'm not doing this. This is not working for me. And that's when the inspiration of raw food happened. There was a new raw food restaurant that had opened nearby, and in Seattle proper. And I went and had this food, and I just tasted it, and I knew, like, this is it. This is going to make a difference for me, because I know that deficiency and toxicity are 2 of the main causes of most illness, right? Where we're deficient in the nutrients we need, or we're toxic. Well, raw food has the dual benefit. It nourishes you, and it helps to detoxify you, because you're so nourished, you're not eating a bunch of crap.
Right. So the question comes up, raw food is no cooking of any kind, right?
Yeah, you can use a dehydrator, and dehydrate at a temperature of 115 degrees Fahrenheit or less. I believe 118 is the point, but it's debatable. Some people say 110. I think it's 118 is the point where it's not considered raw anymore if you go over that. But yeah, so I'll make, sandwich wraps out of flax and put them in the dehydrator. And so the enzymes are still intact because I'm cooking them at a high temperature.
So if someone lives in a part of country, wherever, or their country where it gets cold in the winter, how do you help your clients reconcile not eating something hot like soup in the wintertime?
It's challenging, and sometimes you do need soup in the winter time. I'm not, hard and fast, strict. If your body's calling for a hot soup, have hot soup. But you can, there are high-speed blenders, good high-speed blenders that you can make soup. You can eat warm food.
Okay.
Right? Not cooking all the nutrition out of it. You can use warming spices like ginger, for example, and cinnamon. Those have a warming effect on the body. So those are some ways to do that.
What have been, at least one challenge or a block or an obstacle that you have worked through to get to where you are? Because your energy is amazing. It has been, when you and I first met many years ago, it was amazing, and it's even more amazing now because it's several years later, and you've been doing this work.
So the question,
sorry. Share with us a challenge or an obstacle that you not only recognized, but then managed to work through. How did you do that? What is the obstacle and how did you do that?
For myself personally?
Yes.
Okay, I was married to a man for 21 years, and the marriage wasn't serving either one of us. And I had all the trappings of what people would look at and think was this wonderful life. Beautiful home, nice car, really anything I wanted. Like we weren't like millionaires or anything, but we were sad. I was a stay-at-home mom, right? Didn't have to go to work, just took care of the house, took care of him, took care of our daughter. And I had to walk away from that. I would have died there. I'm telling you. I mean, I was dying there, and it wasn't serving my daughter to be in that situation. In fact, when I told her that I was leaving, we were leaving, she looked at me and she said, "It's about effing time." Okay. And she didn't use a lot of foul language, but I did teach her, if you ever need to use it for effect. She knew exactly when to use it because she knew, she knew.
It couldn't have been easy. Yes, you were dying there on the inside and on the outside, and yet, so many people know they need to leave a situation or a relationship, and it is so much of a challenge. How did you got to the point where you knew you needed to do that, but how did you get over the now what? What's on the other side of this?
Well, grace. I think grace played a huge part in that. And I had help. I had a spiritual teacher, a Kuan Yin channel, actually.
Nice.
Yeah. And she also happens to be a acupuncturist and a chiropractor. So brought all of that in. That was a huge help to me and support. And then I had some friends that, understood what I was going through. And support is key.
Support is definitely key. How do you help your clients once they come to you? They're pretty much ready to do what it is they need to do. But how do you help them transition from the big list down to this is the small list?
What they're eating, you mean?
No, what they're eating, yes, or doing.
Well, as you said, it's all about motivation. Whatever is motivating them is their business, right? They need to get in touch with that, and I can help them get in touch with that. But ultimately, it's up to them, and their reasons are very personal. And so, to remind them of their reason, if they forget or when they forget, because that's easy to do sometimes. Because when you clean up your diet and start eating a lot of raw food, it does bring up a lot of emotion. There can be physical discomfort, and that needs to be moved through. And so a lot of patience and understanding that could be, but not to dwell on that. It's just part of it. And so if we need to slow down the detox, we'll slow it down. It's like, have a baked potato, have some soup, eat something warm and nourishing to help with that.
there's a lot of energy work that goes into this. So what energy modality do you use or to help your clients to raise their frequency?
It's tricky. I've studied so many different techniques, and I've never felt that any of them were mine to do or to teach, or they all just sort of, I draw on them as I need them, and it's so automatic that the best I can explain it is it's like a heart-based clearing, like a holding of space. And I can go in and shift some energy, if I see and feel like, here's an example. When I was first learning how to do that kind of work, a couple that my ex and I knew at the time came to visit, and he had Bell's palsy. And I mean, I'd seen him a week before, and his face was perfectly symmetrical. So this thing just sort of happened over the week. And we were sitting at the kitchen table, and I said, so, hey, I just learned this new clearing technique. Do you mind if I practice on you? He goes, have at it. So we used a pendulum back then, to just watch the energy. And so I was picking up that there was one thing that needed to be cleared, and it was in the physical field. And that pendulum just spun for what seemed like forever. It was probably only 5 minutes, but like a watched pot never boils.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it stopped dead in its tracks. And it's like, okay, it's done, whatever it was. And he looked at me and he said, that was so weird. I said, what? He said, my whole face just popped.
Wow.
And I was like, there could be something to this new thing I just learned. And then I saw him again the following week, because his wife and I were very good friends. And his face was symmetrical again. It was like a sign, it's like, whatever you're doing here, just keep doing it. And
it's interesting how the different energy healing modalities have kind of come together in one, in a sense, for you. I find that has what's happened for me. I've studied Reiki and some other things, and now it's just kind of all in one. So when somebody says, well, what do you do? It's like, how do you answer that? Because there's no name for it. And we humans like labels.
Yeah, and it's just doing what you do. It's like, I'm doing Madeline, whatever that is. I think it's about having the clarity so that whatever wants to come through you can come through you. Because honestly, don't feel like I'm doing anything except being the vehicle for
exactly,
holding that space of clarity for that to come through.
What would you tell someone else? What would you share with our viewers as to if they want to do something like what you're doing, or they're already doing it? How would you help them grow their business in that sense? What information or support would you offer?
So if they wanted to do what, energy work, or if they wanted
energy work, or help someone with their diet, to just really get to that point where they figured out, okay, I need to dig deeper for myself, and oh, by the way, I want to help others. How would they do that?
I think that they would know if that's what they wanted to do, right?
Okay.
So I would recommend that they meditate. Absolutely critical to get in touch with that information that's within that, because I believe we all have the answers that we seek. They're all inside, and sometimes people show up as messengers, because we need that. If we hear it from somebody else, it's like the expert in town, like the new person comes to town and they're the expert. In the meantime, you've got all these people here doing that stuff anyway. Like you're your own expert, and you know what you need. And just pray for the help that will take you to your next step. And that's what has always worked for me. And I think it's pretty solid advice.
So how is it you work with, or what's one of your favorite ways of working with your clients, Beautiful?
Well, they're all so different. It's hard to
pick one.
Okay, I have one very special client that I absolutely adore. I seem to get a lot of young moms, even though that was not my quote specialty, that's just who's showing up. So they all have, young children, and they either want to get their kids to eat better, or they have this one I'm thinking of, she had some eczema, and it's funny, right? Because that was my issue. So no surprise that would show up. And the thing about her that I love is her willingness and her openness to listen to her body and to take what's showing up and look for the lesson that's under it too. Like, she's doing the spiritual work in addition to the food piece, right? If this is happening, then, oh yeah, I get why that is. Oh, I had exposure to this chemical back then, and that could be what's coming up now. But then she will bring the spiritual part in and is open to that. And those are the clients that I really love working with, the ones that are, it's not just like they don't want you to fix them, because that's not what I do. It's a co-creation, right?
Absolutely. People have to do their part, otherwise it's not going to work very well. Wow. What else would you like to share with our viewers, beautiful?
Well, boy, just to remind them to be compassionate to themselves. I feel like that's the most thing. We're always, it's easy to go into judgment.
Yes.
Where we're concerned, right? We can forgive other people for, seeming things that they have done. But when it comes to ourselves, I think we tend to judge ourselves a little more harshly. And so, just remember, this is a journey, and we're always going to be shown what's the next piece. And we may think we dealt with this thing or that thing until it comes up again. And just, we're like an onion, and the layers will present as we're able to move through them. So, yeah, to just be compassionate and be kind to ourselves.
Good advice. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your time, your expertise, and your journey. It's been a pleasure. Please tell our viewers where they can find you.
They can find me at consciouslyraw.com, and also Madeline Eyer on Facebook, and Consciously Raw is also on Facebook and Instagram. And I have a Twitter account, but yeah, I tweet just only occasionally at this point.
I have a Twitter, and it's like everything feeds into it. I don't do a whole lot with the birds.
And if they want, they can go to Consciously Raw website, and there's a freebie that I just put up there, a beautiful new compilation of 10 smoothie bowl recipes.
Right. It's consciouslyraw.com.
Yes.
And on Facebook or social media, it's Madeline Eyer, MaDeLineEyer.
Yeah, it's pronounced Eyer, Madeline Eyer.
Eyer, okay, Madeline Eyer. Which is why we spelled it, because it would sound like it's spelled a different way. So Eyer is Eyer.
Yeah, like I see you.
I see you. Thank you so much for being here. It is a pleasure. And when you have finished enjoying her interview, please pop by angeldreamteam.com. Click on Living Spirit and Wellness Global Directory. You never know who you're going to find, in addition to our wonderful graphic designers, readers, healers, consultants. Maybe you want to write your book. And then do share this with others, because you just never know who needs to see it, and maybe you want to see it again yourself. I am your host, Angel Lady Terry Marie. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you again next time, beautiful soul. Bye-bye for now.